Have you ever gone down a weird internet rabbit hole and wondered, what are other people searching for? Well, we're going to dive deep into that. Because today we're exploring some of the absolute darkest corners of the internet. These are searches you should probably never, ever make, especially if you want to sleep tonight.
Look, we all use search engines for normal stuff, right? Recipes, directions, trivia. But what happens when that curiosity takes a much darker turn? That little search bar holds a ton of secrets, and some of them are genuinely disturbing.
Just to give you a little taste of what I'm talking about, the question, how to hide a body, gets searched, on average, 1,000 times every single month. Yeah, it's a pretty shocking statistic, and it really shows you just how dark these queries can get.
And oh yeah, it gets worse. How to get away with murder gets searched almost 2,000 times a month. But believe it or not, these are just the simple ones. There are things out there, things people are looking for that are much, much more horrifying.
So before we go any further, just a quick word of warning, and this comes straight from our source material. If you decide to go looking for any of this stuff later, that's on you. The responsibility is all yours. You might just be the one who can't sleep for a very, very long time.
So let's start with our first category. This one deals with real-world horrors that are almost too gruesome to even believe. We are talking about crimes that just defy imagination.
Okay, so meet Armin Mewes. He was a German man who earned himself the incredibly grim nickname the Master Butcher, and he got it because he went onto online cannibalism forums to find someone who would willingly volunteer to be his meal. Yeah, you heard me right. A willing volunteer.
And the most horrifying part? He actually succeeded. A man named Bernd Brandis responded to his post and literally offered his body to Mewes. They met up, and together they planned out exactly how Bernd would be, well, consumed.
What's so deeply unsettling here is just how methodical it all was. And if that wasn't already disturbing enough, Mewes filmed the entire thing. This quote, it describes just one part of a truly repulsive event. The source material has some very simple advice here. Do not search for it.
All right, let's move to a totally different kind of horror. There's a drug out there known as crocodile, and the reason it's so unbelievably destructive is actually pretty simple. You see, while a heroin high can last up to 8 hours, crocodile's high is over in just 90 minutes. Since it takes about an hour just to cook up a batch, users get trapped in this constant vicious cycle of just producing and injecting over and over again.
But the drug gets its name, crocodile, from its most horrifying side effect, necrosis. The drug literally eats away at the user's flesh right where it's injected, exposing bone and muscle underneath. It gives people this zombie-like appearance, and the images you can find online are absolutely shocking. Trust me, this is one search you will definitely regret making.
All right, let's step away from the physical horror for a second and move into things that haunt the mind. We are now entering the realm of cursed audio recordings and supernatural legends that have found a very dark home on the internet.
Now, you've probably heard of the Slender Man legends, right? But you might not know about the real case of a man named Thomas Neely back in 1989. After his daughter, Jessica, went missing, he claimed he encountered something absolutely terrifying in the woods. The audio from his police interrogation was recorded, and it is said to be completely chilling, unlike anything you've ever heard.
67. That's the number of exorcism rites that were performed on a young German woman named Anneliese Michel. Over a period of just 10 months, her family and 2 priests became convinced she was possessed by demons. It's a story so tragic and so terrifying that it actually inspired the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
So what was actually happening during these sessions? Well, this quote describes some of Annaliese's behavior. She would tear her clothes, she would self-harm, just these deeply disturbing acts. Her family was absolutely convinced it was demonic possession, though her official cause of death was later ruled to be malnutrition and dehydration.
And here's where it gets truly unsettling. Original audio recordings from those exorcism sessions, they exist online. The source material describes them as completely bizarre and warns that you really, really don't want to hear them. I'd probably take that advice.
All right, for our final section, we're going to combine real-life tragedy, some deep-seated phobias, and the ghost stories that often spring up from them. These are the kinds of searches that tap into our most primal fears.
So there's this old urban legend about a figure called Mr. 13, some sort of grim being that appears in mirrors. And according to the legend, you can summon him by following these steps. Now, of course, you're not actually going to do this, but if you search for it, you will find stories about what supposedly happened to the people who did.
You know, what's kind of fascinating about this whole legend is its connection to numerology. Some scholars think the number of the beast from the Bible wasn't originally 666, but was actually translated as 616. And here's the legend's creepy logic. If you add 6 plus 1 plus 6, you get 13.
Let's talk about phobias for a second. Are you afraid of snakes? Because there is a video out there of someone filming a giant nest of them. Apparently, just the sound is enough to make your skin crawl. But the story goes that somewhere mid-recording, something terrible happens. I really wouldn't risk watching it to find out what.
And now, for a real, documented tragedy, the Jolma building fire in São Paulo. It all started with a simple short circuit in an air conditioner, and it quickly became this horrific inferno. This timeline just shows you how fast it all escalated. The violent, tragic deaths there have led to countless stories of hauntings that persist to this very day.
The scale of the human loss was just immense. In total, 191 people lost their lives that day, and over 300 were injured. The pictures from the event are truly awful, showing bodies piled up on the street below the building.
But the greatest mystery to come out of the Jolma building involves the number 13. Inside one of the elevators, firefighters found 13 bodies, all burned so badly they could never be identified. They were buried side by side, and their story has become known as the Case of the 13 Souls, which is absolutely central to the building's haunted lore.
So, after hearing about all of this, cannibalistic rituals, flesh-eating drugs, real exorcism tapes, and ghost stories born from real tragedy, let me ask you one last time, are you still feeling brave enough to go searching? Because, like I said at the very beginning, what you find out there might really, deeply disturb you. But the choice, of course, is all yours. Sweet dreams, if you can manage them.